Mangwanani Mwalelepo Bugenjani Vanave Africa. Welcome to the show that brings you pertinent stories from across our beautiful continent and beyond. My name is Aina Raizakoya alongside Diana Master Mamukase.
Tamuka Mamukase.
Tamuka.
Ah, I love it. You're doing better and better by the day. You're starting to sound
Flips her.
Flips her. You're starting to sound like a native and I like that.
I could literally relocate to Zim.
You can, just like, you know, I'm a whole Awambohan now, certified.
Yes, yep, definitely.
Let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Zambia's high population growth rate requires strategic investments in education and reproductive health, says Parliamentary SRHR Caucus. Joburg Mayor Thapelo Amad faces axing after 9.5 billion rand loan claim. PA admits it backed wrong horse. Finally, Ukraine cities pounded US scrambles to find source of leaked documents. We'll get into these stories right after the break.
Let's get into the news making headlines now. Zambia's Parliamentary Caucus on Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights is currently participating in the 56th session of the Commission on Population and Development in New York, USA. The program, which runs from the 10th to the 14th of April 2023, includes an opening session, general debate, side events, and expert panel discussions on the reports of the Secretary General. Zambia's population has grown rapidly in recent years with a 3.4% annual growth rate between 2010 and 2022. Now, according to the preliminary 2022 Census of Population and Housing Report, the country's population now stands at 19.6 million, up from 13.1 million in 2010. With a 3.4% annual growth rate, Zambia's population is estimated to double in next time. The high population growth rate is due to the persistent high fertility and declining mortality, which has resulted in a very youthful population.
Getting into our next story, Joburg Mayor Thapelo Amad faces axing after 9.5 billion rand loan claim and PA admits it backed the wrong horse. Action SA wants incompetent City of Johannesburg Mayor Thapelo Amad removed through a no-confidence motion. The party's Gauteng City of Joburg Caucus leader Funzi Ngobeni said on Tuesday that Amad was a failed puppet mayor. It wants the council to debate the status of his leadership on 25 April. Ahmad An Al-Jama'a councillor has caused much controversy since his election in January in a vote sponsored by the ANC, EFF and a group of smaller parties, including the Patriotic Alliance. Parties in the council have questioned his fitness for the role. He recently made controversial comments about what he claimed was a 9.5 billion rand loan of a private company offered to the city. He told SABC's Morning Live that he could not explain the terms of the loan in detail or why a private company would give the city such a large sum of money. However, it angered parties including the PA. PA leader Gayton McKenzie threatened to pull the PA out of its coalition with the ANC in Johannesburg.
Now, in our next story, Ukraine cities are pounded and the US scrambles to find the source of leaked documents. Ukraine forces pounded frontline cities in eastern Ukraine with airstrikes and artillery attacks, while US officials stepped up efforts to locate the source of a leak of classified US documents, including those on Ukrainian counter-offensive plan. The Russian pressed on with their offensive in the eastern Donetsk region region, where several cities and towns come under heavy bombardment, Ukraine's general staff said on Tuesday. Ukrainian forces report several attacks, it said, as the Russian military kept up its effort to take control of Bakhmut. A top Ukrainian commander accused Moscow of using scorched earth tactics. The enemy switched to so-called scorched earth tactics from Syria. It is destroying buildings and positions with airstrikes and artillery fire, Colonel General Saiki said, the commander of Ukraine's ground forces said of Bakhmut.
Sudan misses deadline to form civilian government. Sudanese civilian groups and the ruling party have missed a deadline to form a civilian-led transitional government amid disagreements on security reforms and other issues. According to a timeline set up by the parties, a new prime minister and other posts should have been announced on Tuesday. The deadline lapsed after the parties twice failed to sign a final transition deal over disagreements on the integration of the paramilitary rapid support forces into the army. A joint committee from the military and RSF, which was set up to discuss contentious issues, reportedly suspended the talks for 1 day for further consultations, Al Intibaha website reported. Meanwhile, the RSF has reportedly sent about 14 armored vehicles to the capital, Khartoum, in anticipation of an emergency. Paris-based Sudan Tribune news site reported. Citing an unnamed RSF official, the Sudan Tribune said that the vehicles had been stationed in Zirk locality on the border with Libya and were on their way to Khartoum as part of RSF's plans to deploy its forces in the city. The Sudanese army and the RSF have in recent weeks been mobilizing their troops in the capital. It follows divisions between Sudan's deputy leader, who's the RSF commander, General Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemeti, and military chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, raising fears on confrontations between the army and the RSF.
Postponing district polls is coup against democracy, and this is according to opposition. The two opposition parties in Mozambique Parliament on Monday demanded the reconvention of the commission set up to assess the relevance of district elections, accusing the ruling party of orchestrating a gradual coup to democracy to postpone the ballot. The elections were scheduled for October 2024 through the Constitution of the Republic, and we cannot accept that the Constitution be kicked to accommodate obscure interests of ill-intentioned people who want at all costs to stay in power. Ismail Nakwe, spokesperson of the Mozambique Democratic Movement, the third force with parliamentary seats, told Lusa. The issue at stake is the approval on Wednesday of the creation of a commission to reflect on the relevance of the district elections, which will be made up of staff of recognized expertise and experience in local governance and public finance, said government spokesperson Filimo Sauze, without giving further details or deadlines.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories, 2 aid workers killed in troubled Amara region. The Ethiopian government has announced that the 2 employees of Catholic Relief Services were shot dead over the weekend in the Amara region of northern Ethiopia, which has been plagued by unrest for several days, the NGO said on Tuesday. Protests and road blockades in Amara have been reported since Thursday after the federal government began the process of disarming and reassigning members of military units under regional authority to the federal army or the police. These units, known as special forces in Ethiopia, have been established outside of any legal framework for the past 15 years by some regional states. Chul Tongik, a security officer, and Amari Kindea, a driver, was shot dead in an SRC vehicle in the Amara region on the way back to Addis Ababa after a mission, the SRC said. The circumstances of their murder, which occurred on Sunday, are unknown, the US-based Catholic NGO said. According to its website, CRS has been working in Ethiopia for nearly 60 years. The situation is difficult to assess in Amara, which is close to the press for security reasons. On Monday, restrictions including nighttime traffic and meetings were imposed on 3 of Amara's main towns, Gondar, Desi and Debre Biran. The rules were issued by the military command post in each of the towns, suggesting that the federal army is now in charge of their security.
After the break, we bring you a news that is trending in South Africa with Ari Houhad. Stay with us.
Namibië sonder grense vertel weekliks die stories van Namibiërs wat oor see of elders in die buiteland werk. Die program nooi jou om saam te reis na nuwe bestemmings en meer oor ons mense, hul lewens, talente, sienswyse en Namibië se trotste wêreldwye voetspoor te leer. Volg Namibië sonder grense op Netwerk TV, NTV, oneup2.com en Republikeinse Facebookblad. Namibië sonder grense handel oor uitreik, gesels, reis en wenke en soms toer ons na besienswaardighede in die land waar ons kuier. Kontak grense@synergy.com.na en vertel ons van Namibiërs wat jy oor see ken of om jou reisprodukte te adverteer. Namibië sonder grense, ons land oral in die wêreld.
Now in some news from South Africa, Cabinet await the findings of Energy Minister Kosiyentsho Ramokgopa after visiting Eskom's 15 power stations. Here to give us the story and more is Ari Hochad. Good morning, Ari. If you could please take us through all of your stories.
Yes, very good morning, Diana. Nice to talk to you. And yes, energy is a big factor in South Africa constantly, and we see it in the discussions in Parliament. And it was the Minister Ramokgopa that you mentioned that visited the 15 power stations. He will give, he will give feedback to Parliament about what the state of the power stations is at the moment. A big thing that's coming out from this is that the Minister of Electricity, Ramokgopa, and the Minister of State Public Enterprises, rather, Mr. Praveen Gordhan, they differ on what needs to happen next. The one thought of Mr. Ramokgopa is that stations need to be upgraded and invest lots of money to refurbish. And Mr. Gordhan there, he says that there must be a balance. Some money needs to be spent there, but renewable energy is the way to go. And more focus on solar panels and different to create energy. So that's it's going to be expensive to refurbish all the power stations. Unfortunately, it's going to cost close to 400 billion South African rand, and so that is a challenge for the government. So the feedback is in Parliament when they give feedback on the visit.
All right, if you could get into the second story as well as all of your stories, please, Ari.
Sure, we'll do that. So yes, also a big day yesterday was when it happened. Yes, it is former President Thabo that met with the top 7 of the ANC. That's quite significant in the public or in the political sphere of Africa at the moment. Important because it's elections coming up, and former President Thabo Mbeki was quite critical of what's happening in South Africa at the moment from the government and also from the ANC, specifically with the handling of the Pala. So it is the ANC, that's the top 7. They say they rather need him as a councillor, as a mentor, than a critic. So that is a tough one to handle. But it's been in the past, presidents were critical of what's happening. ANC is come together and rather be a mentor and counsel us on what needs to happen. So it was a meeting that happened. Not sure what the outcome is. Media today got to get closer in that regard. Also related to the power outages, there were 7 power towers that fell down in Pretoria. It was first thought that it might have been a wind that came through, but it seems to be sabotage. So that's some good news for Pretoria. Most of Pretoria out of electricity at the moment. It's 7 pylons that went down. Also for the industry, it is the Ford Motor Company that's really battling. They are losing capacity of 20 vehicles per day that they cannot provide. It's not good. They recently put 16 billion South African rand in that project, supplied 200,000 vehicles a day. But they're totally out of electricity. Hopefully it will be restored. And to close off, it is sport again. Hopefully that will give a smile to it. It is in 100 days' time. It's the soccer World Cup. The women showing the men how to play soccer. The women showing the men sport in South Africa. So that's the inspiration. There's the women's team. We're proud of them. They're going to play in 100 days of July. The World Cup starts in Australia. So big tournament. There she is very positive about the progress. The group they play against Italy, Argentina and Sweden. First game against Sweden, 23rd of July. But making South Africa proud, so it's a great idea of what can happen for South African sports. So that's the South African news for today. Sorry, possibly. We do have load shedding at the moment where I am, so that is just testimony of the way that we do things now. But have a brilliant day, everyone, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Ari, for being with us today. Despite the load shedding, it just goes to show how much Ari loves us.
Commitment.
And commitment. We're now going to take a quick ad break, but before that, we'll take a look at the weather and return with our economic news.
Let's get into our economic news this morning. Nigeria's unemployment rate to hit 41% in 2023, and this is according to KPMG. Amid the attacks on Ukraine, Nigeria imported 39.68 billion naira worth of goods from Russia, according to the foreign trade reports of the National Bureau of Statistics for 2022. This represents about 85% increase from the 21. The Punch observed that the total imports from Russia hit 21.84 billion in Q2 of 2022, a massive increase of 8.98 billion naira in Q1 of 2022. The foreign trade reports also shows that only 1.71 trillion worth of goods was imported from Russia in the third quarter.
Getting into our next story, Kenya's civil servants to go on strike over delayed March salary. Kenya's civil servants are set to go on strike to press the government to pay salary arrears, a move that could throw the public service into turmoil. Thousands of government employees went for Easter holidays without March salaries, and some county workers are owed up to 3 months' pay. On Monday, Nation learned that 2 unions representing national and county government employees have notified the umbrella workers body, the Central Organization of Trade Units, of the intention by their members to boycott work. Should the government employees walk out, it will be an unprecedented strike over delayed salaries, which has also affected MPs, as past national strikes have been about pay rises. Kotu confirmed to Nation receipt of strike notices from the Union of Kenya Civil Servants and the Kenya County Government Workers Union, while medics in the North Rift region are already on strike. Governors have protested at failure by the National Treasury to release money to the counties for the 4th consecutive month since December. By end of March, counties said they were owed 122.1 billion shilling, with governors blaming the withheld cash for their failure to pay county workers' salaries.
We take a look at our economic indicators and thereafter the sports package with Ari Hohad.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news and starting off with tennis news. It is the clay season that starts for the men's side. The women's season will also start very soon. And a big tournament being played in Monte Carlo. It is the ATP Thousands tournament. It is the Monte Carlo Masters. And it is results from the round of 64 that's in. It is Dominic Thiem of Austria. He's through to the next round and he beat Richard Gasquet of France. Good win for Dominic Thiem. He won by 6-1 and 6-4. And Dominic Thiem, a former world top 5 player. Also, Alex de Minaur, he is from Australia. He beat the experienced Andy Murray of Scotland, of the United Kingdom. He beat him also convincingly 6-1 and 6-3. Then Sam Wawrinka, also a former major winner. He beat Talen Griekspoor of the Netherlands by 5-7, 6-3 and 6-4. And he's through to the next round where he will play the American Taylor Fritz. Number 1 seed for this tournament is Novak Djokovic, and he will play Ivan Gabov. He is from Russia in the first round, in the round of 64. And then the second seed is Stefanos Tsitsipas, and number 3 seed is Daniil Medvedev, a very strong field playing in the Monte Carlo Masters. Moving on to soccer news, and it is Leicester City, the soccer club in England, that announced that they've got a new coach for the rest of the season. And the former Norwich coach and also Aston Villa coach, his name is Dean Smith. So Dean Smith, experience having been a coach of Norwich and Aston Villa, and he will take over for the rest of the season. He replaces Brendan Rodgers, that was sacked just a few weeks ago. But since Rodgers was sacked, Leicester City continue to lose 4 games in a row. They're second from bottom now in the English Premier League, very close to relegation. The top 3 teams go down, is relegated every season. So a tough assignment for him, very tough weekend coming up also for Leicester City. In the first game for Dean Smith, they need to travel to Manchester City, that's second on the lock and the defending league champions. And so Leicester City playing Manchester City away in their first game for Dean Smith. Continuing international sports news with golf news, and the next tournament on the PGA Men's Tour is the RBC Heritage Tournament being played at Hilton Head. And news from the PGA is that Rory McIlroy, the world number 3, announced that he will withdraw from the tournament. He's not going to be able to play in the tournament. And it is McIlroy that didn't have a good Masters tournament that just concluded the past weekend. He missed the cut with rounds of 72 and 77. There might be implications for Rory McIlroy regarding his rewards and bonuses, and all the top 20 players on the PGA required to play designated tournaments or events to qualify for bonuses in the end of the year. They're allowed to miss 1 tournament in the year, but already Rory McIlroy missed the first one, won the first designated tournament. That was a Century tournament. That was the first of the season. McIlroy received almost $8 million in rewards and bonuses for the 2022 season. Closing off today's international sports news with soccer news, and anticipation growing. That is for the Women's World Cup soccer tournament that starts on the 20th of July. That will be in Australia and New Zealand. And FIFA announced that they expect a record attendance. Already 650,000 tickets been sold, and the next phase of tickets being put on sale has opened this week. FIFA also expect that 2 billion viewers will view the tournament. That is expected to be double the amount of viewers that was 4 years ago in France, when it was the USA, United States of America, that won the previous World Cup. South Africa did qualify for the tournament. There's 3 other teams from Africa in the tournament. That will be Morocco, also Zambia and Nigeria. South Africa in a tough pool. They play in a group with Argentina, also Italy and also Sweden. South Africa's first game will be the 23rd of July. That will be in Wellington when they play against Sweden. That's international sport news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
As always, before we sign off, we take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast, just in case you need a quick recap. Zambia's high population growth rate requires strategic investments in education and reproductive health, says Parliamentary SRHR Caucus. Joburg Mayor Thapelo Amad faces axing after 9.5 billion rand loan claim. PA admits it backed wrong horse. Ukraine cities pounded US scrambles to find source of leaked documents. Nigerian unemployment rate to hit 41% in 2023, and this is according to KPMG.
Those have been our stories. We thank you very much for watching our show this morning. Please be reminded that we do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can post them on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Africa Good Morning screens on DSTV channel 285 as well as GoTV channel 94. And on that note, it's all our love, all our light, and happy Wednesday.